The sole purpose of this video is to provide a basic overview and orientation of your new apparatus. This video is not intended to act as or replace individualized driver-operator training. Individual fire departments may base guidelines, policies, and procedures tailored for best practices. Pierce Manufacturing and Hughes Fire Equipment representatives are not liable for injuries caused from acts resulting from actions inconsistent with the information provided within this video and/or accompanying manuals. Refer to the Operation and Maintenance Manual for complete details relating to the components and features of this apparatus. Only trained personnel should operate this vehicle or perform maintenance. You are responsible for learning how to operate this fire apparatus under all conditions without having to refer to the manual while operating at an emergency incident. This video will discuss types of warnings and caution labels. It is your responsibility to locate and identify each of the labels and understand the importance and associated hazards. Warning labels will point out procedure that must be taken or action that must be avoided to guard against the possibility of serious injury or death. Caution labels will advise you that there is a risk of damage to property if certain precautions are not followed. Continuous training, reviewing of operation and service manuals, developing good standardized practices will assist driver operators with a more complete understanding of the components and operation of this fire apparatus. As the driver operator of this vehicle, you are responsible for understanding the function of each component of the apparatus, maintaining control of the fire apparatus at all times while in operation, make operational and functional changes while operating at an emergency without having to read operator's instructions or safety warning labels, operate manual override and emergency shutdown procedures immediately if a component fails to operate properly. Components location may vary with each Pierce fire apparatus. Review the exact location of each component prior to operation. Major inconsistencies between your vehicle and the information contained in this video should be directed to your sales representative. Safe operation of any vehicle is the responsibility of the driver operator. You must learn the location and function of all controls, switches, gauges, valves, inlets, and discharges. Due to a higher center of gravity, heavy trucks have a significantly higher rollover tendency than other types of vehicles. To reduce the risk of rollover, avoid making sharp turns, excessive speed, and avoid abrupt maneuvers. In the event of a rollover crash, an unbelted person is significantly more likely to become injured or die than a person wearing a seatbelt. In the event of a crash, unbuckled occupants can also become a hazard to other occupants as they may be thrown around inside the cab. Seatbelts are required while in operation. Please refer to your warranty certificates for details and information enclosed in your manuals. Customer-installed equipment must be mounted to withstand road travel and comply with NFPA 1901. Modifications such as drilling holes or welding to structural frame components of the chassis are not permitted. Contact Pierce for instruction and review of non-structural sheet metal or other dissimilar metals for modification. Follow the radio installation guide for further assistance on installing or mounting electronics. Before placing your new apparatus into service, perform a primary inspection of key components of the apparatus, including all fluid levels, anti-lock braking systems, electronic stability control, and automatic traction control. Weigh your apparatus to ensure that it conforms to axle and brake ratings. Never exceed the gross axle rating printed on the label inside the cab. Exceeding these ratings could lead to reduced component life, personal injury, or death. Review the use of auxiliary braking systems, compression brake, exhaust brake, electronic retarder, and hydraulic retarder. Before placing the apparatus in service, refer to the operational maintenance manuals. Information on the operation and maintenance functions for the components such as the pump, pressure governor, and foam systems, along with other options, is provided in either the Pierce manuals and/or other manufacturer support information delivered with the apparatus. If you need more information, please contact Hughes Fire Equipment. Congratulations, Valdez, Alaska, job number 29064. Utilize this reference number when referring to your apparatus with Hughes Fire Equipment and Pierce Manufacturing. Let's get started with your apparatus, starting at the front bumper. In the bumper, you have the low and high beam headlights. You have dual air horns on the right and left side, and in the center where the blue tape is located are the dual sirens. Also located above that are emergency lights and a turn arrow indicator. Moving up onto the windshield, there are 3 windshield wipers across the front of the windshield, emergency light bar, and a floodlight, in addition with running lights at the very top. Looking from the driver's side into the cab, there is the master battery switch, diagnostic ports below that. Looking at your dash cluster, there is an ignition switch. Just above that, a start switch and the hazard flashers. Starting in the lower left-hand corner is the emergency master for your emergency lights, the driving lights and parking lights, and panel dimmer switch. On the right-hand side of the steering column, there is a high idle switch and a high idle indicator. On the column, there is the steering column tilt. Looking at the cluster on the left, there is a transmission temperature gauge, oil pressure gauge, DEF level, and water temperature gauge. In the center, you have the tachometer and speedometer and information display. On the right-hand side of the cluster, you have the fuel level, voltage meter, front and rear air, and once again the information display. In the driver's side, you have the yellow air brake, command center, the Allison transmission pad, climate control, light switches, and pump shift. Looking at these individually, we have the command center, starting on the left-hand side, we have the Allison transmission pad, generator foam PTO, generator on-off, and load manager and fuel primer. On the lower bottom side, we have the engine brake on-off switch, the engine brake itself for high, medium, and low, and drive mode engaged. To the right of that, you have your pump mode, rear differential lock, and mirror heat. Looking at the pump shift indicator, you have a pump to road shift air actuated switch. You have the pump engaged light and the OK to pump. Just above that, there are right and left or driver's side and passenger side mirror controls. Over the operator's head, there is the emergency master, roof light, front warning lights, and side warning lights. The next set of switches just below that, there is the lower rear warning, upper rear warning, the takedown lights, and an electronic siren. Moving just slightly to the right of that, there is the driver's scene lights, passenger scene lights, rear scene light, and rear ground scene. Just below that, there is the front scene, and there are 3 blanks for future references. Looking to the rear of the apparatus, from inside the cab, you have a 110 outlet, and there are 2 SCBA brackets. Their rear-facing seats hold SCBAs. In addition, with just below that, there is an engine access compartment. As a general view on the driver's side, there is an emergency light in the lower left-hand corner, through hose storage, telescoping floodlight, and folding steps. Drilling down a little closer to the pump panel is their pump intake, large diameter and 2.5-inch intake. There is also 2 2.5-inch discharge ports, and at the very bottom, the Watrous pump information. As we get a little closer, there's the Husky foam system, foam level indicator, water tank level indicator, and the throttle control. Moving in just a little closer is the pump primer, the panel gauge heater, remote master stream, manual pump shift, indicating the foam shutoff switches. There are 2 on both sides. In addition, with the tank fill, pull lever, engine cooler, tank to pump, and at the very top, the foam manual override. As we look a little closer at the dash of this component, there is the driver's side flood, cargo, pump engaged, pump compartment heater, closed open rear inlet, and an air horn switch. Just past the pump panel, at the very top, is an electrical cord reel, electrical junction box, an adjustable shelf just below that, the breaker box for the master of the engine, and a tool board. Once again, on the driver's side, there is SCBA storage brackets, there is bottle storage, access 120 volt outlet, an emergency light, and SCBA bottle storage. Looking from the driver's side, as a general appearance, there is the pull-out pump step. There are 2 wheel chocks located directly in front of and aft to the rear wheel. There is diesel fuel, DEF fuel, and at the very top, a floodlight. Looking at the most driver's side rear compartment, you have hydraulic reels, a power strip, an adjustable shelf. On both right and left side, the reel rewind push button, and at the very bottom, a pull-out shelf. Looking at the rear of the apparatus, there is the stop, turn, reverse light cluster, an emergency light, folding steps on the rear, access steps on the right-hand side, a floodlight, and compartment access at the top. Looking also at the rear of the apparatus, there is the roof ladder on the right-hand side, a large diameter discharge in the center, and there are folding steps. On the passenger side, the rear compartment, you have 2 adjustable shelves. At the very bottom, a pull-out shelf, and as you can see, currently not mounted is a reel. Looking on the passenger side once again, there is a pull-out shelf at the bottom, an adjustable shelf which is mid, and a pull-out shelf which also tilts down. In the upper right-hand corner is also the battery tender. Looking at the off side of the pump panel, you have a large diameter intake, a 2.5 diameter intake, 2 2.5-inch discharges, and a large diameter discharge. There's also the power equipment rack, which pulls down the ladder rack. At the very bottom, there is drain valves and an emergency light. In the front passenger side, there is a glove box, a grab handle. Overhead, there is compartment storage for future, an overhead light, and also a push on-off red or white light. Just above that, there is the emergency master, roof light, front warning, side warning, lower rear warning, and upper rear warning, in addition with 2 blanks for future. Congratulations, Valdez, Alaska, on job number 29064.